This was a busy week last week. Let me deal first with the new levels of idiocy to which the United Nations has climbed as a result of the president of the Gambia, who took the podium of the General Assembly to say that homosexuality was, of course, one of the greatest evils of humankind. Procreation was essential. Homosexuals wouldn't procreate. Therefore, it was the extinction of the human race, and therefore they were to be demonized and criminalized and generally expunged. This curious nutbar is the same man who created a so-called homeopathic cure for AIDS, which was dangerous and reckless. And now he says he's going to withdraw from the Commonwealth. More power to him. Good riddance. But where are the other African leaders? And why aren't they censuring this ambulatory lunatic? Leading me to the second point, which is what's happening to the African leaders. Why are they so self-defensive and so protective and insular? They're now trying to decide in the middle of this month whether to initiate a mass withdrawal from the International Criminal Court, largely because of the indictment of the President and Vice President of Kenya for crimes against humanity allegedly committed back in 2007 during the election campaign. And there were terrible crimes of rape and murder. But it would be an awful setback to international human rights law were they to withdraw from the court. And there's something about the leadership which has to be reformed. They have to think more openly and generously about the world at large. And then the third item, which is completely unrelated, is of course that report that emerged on climate change, which showed that global warming would be the ruination of the planet, that it oppresses people and creates disease and vulnerability and hunger and famine, and obviously is generated by the discharge of carbon into the atmosphere from coal, oil, and natural gas. There was an adjacent report on the energy sector, which discharges so much carbon. And the leading culprit at the increased discharge over the last several years was, of course, ExxonMobil, followed closely by BP. Okay, I have these questions. Bill Gates makes speeches against the consequences of global warming, and his foundation has invested $1 billion in ExxonMobil and BP. How do you square that circle? How do you live with the transcendent hypocrisy if you're advocating for global health? The UN Foundation has just published a monograph on women's economic empowerment with two logos on the front cover. One, the UN Foundation, the other, ExxonMobil. You guessed it. And this is a foundation that speaks out against the consequences of global warming. How is that possible? Malaria No More is one of the great initiatives to quell malaria around the world. And who is their major corporate partner? ExxonMobil. As a matter of fact, that's particularly repugnant because the malaria-bearing mosquitoes in southern Africa are moving north, and malaria is appearing in countries that never had malaria before. I mean, I understand the need for public-private global partnerships, but don't you draw the line somewhere? Why do you shake hands with the devil? That was last week. I'm Stephen Lewis.